Rain fell like silver threads over Hangzhou, softening the city into a watercolor blur. Neon lights trembled in puddles, and the night breathed with a quiet expectancy, as if the world itself was holding its breath for something that had been written long before either of them knew how to read fate. Wang Yibo stood under the eaves of an old tea house, helmet tucked beneath his arm, leather jacket still warm from the ride. The rain didn't bother him. What unsettled him was the pull in his chest, the strange certainty that if he stayed where he was for one heartbeat longer, something irreversible would happen. Across the street, Xiao Zhan adjusted the strap of his bag, staring up at the same rain with a half-smile that carried both exhaustion and hope. He had just finished a charity rehearsal, music still ringing in his ears, lyrics about distance, and longing clinging to him like perfume. He had taken the street on a whim, following a feeling he couldn't explain. When Yibo looked up, their eyes met. Time fractured. The city's noise drained away, leaving only the soft percussion of rain and the echo of something ancient awakening. It wasn't love at first sight. It was recognition, the way you recognize your own name in a crowd before it's even spoken. A taxi splashed through a puddle, snapping the moment apart. Xiao Zhan laughed lightly, embarrassed by the intensity of his own thoughts, and stepped forward. Yibo moved at the same time. They collided. "Sorry," they said in unison, then froze. Up close, the air between them hummed. Xiao Zhan noticed the faint scent of rain and metal. Yibo noticed the warmth in Xiao Zhan's eyes, like a lantern left on for travelers who might lose their way. "It's fine," Xiao Zhan said, voice gentle. "I wasn't watching where I was going." Yibo shook his head. "Me neither." They stood there longer than necessary, rain blurring the edges of the world, neither willing to step back. Finally, Xiao Zhan gestured toward the tea house. "Do you want to wait out the rain?" Yibo nodded, though he didn't remember deciding. Inside, the tea house glowed amber. Steam curled from porcelain cups, carrying the scent of jasmine and roasted leaves. They chose a corner table by the window, watching the rain stitch the night together again. They talked, at first about nothing, then about everything. Music and movement, silence and speed, dreams that felt too big to say out loud. Each discovery felt less like learning something new and more like remembering something forgotten. When the rain finally stopped, neither of them wanted to leave. "Maybe," Xiao Zhan said carefully, "we could do this again." Yibo smiled, a rare and guarded thing. "Definitely." Neither of them noticed the old woman at the counter, stringing red thread through tiny jade beads. She watched them with knowing eyes and whispered, "Destiny doesn't knock. It waits." Weeks passed, and fate proved relentless. They ran into each other everywhere, at late-night noodle stalls, quiet galleries, rehearsal halls echoing with unfinished songs. Each meeting felt choreographed, like the universe had rehearsed it long before they had. Their bond deepened in shared silences, in the way Xiao Zhan listened when Yibo spoke about speed and freedom, about the way the world sharpened when he rode. In the way Yibo watched Xiao Zhan paint late into the night, colors blooming under his hands like living things. One evening, after a long day, they climbed a hill overlooking the city. Lanterns floated upward from a nearby festival, each one carrying a wish. "What would you wish for?" Xiao Zhan asked. Yibo considered. "I don't make wishes. I make choices." Xiao Zhan smiled. "Then what choice would you make?" Yibo looked at him, the city glowing below like a constellation fallen to earth. "This," he said simply. Xiao Zhan's breath caught. He didn't need more words. They didn't rush what followed. Their love unfolded with patience, layered with trust. When the world intruded, cameras, schedules, expectations, they learned to protect what was theirs. Love became a quiet rebellion, a sanctuary they built together. Yet destiny, once awakened, doesn't rest. The letter arrived on a winter morning, sealed in red. Xiao Zhan found it slipped beneath his door, the paper thick and old-fashioned. There was no return address, only his name written in elegant strokes. Inside, a single sentence. Those bound by the red thread must choose whether to honor it or break it. At the bottom, an address. A date. Midnight. He showed Yibo that night, fingers trembling slightly. "This is ridiculous," he said, trying to laugh it off. "Probably a prank." Yibo didn't laugh. A strange familiarity stirred in him, like déjà vu sharpening into memory. Let's go, he said. Together. The address led them to an abandoned ancestral hall on the edge of the city. Snow drifted lazily, muting the world. Inside, candles flickered to life as they stepped forward, illuminating faded murals of lovers reaching across lifetimes. At the center stood the old woman from the teahouse. You're late, she said, though her smile was kind. Who are you? Xiao Zhan asked. A witness, she replied. And a reminder. She gestured to the murals. Scenes of two souls meeting again and again. Warriors, scholars, artists, strangers brushing hands in crowded streets. Always the same eyes. Always the same pull. You have walked this path before, she said softly. In different names. Different lives. Always finding each other. Always choosing each other. Yibo felt the truth settle into his bones. Memories flickered, standing on a battlefield searching for a familiar face, waiting by a river with a song unfinished, reaching out in a crowd centuries ago. And now? Xiao Zhan asked, voice barely above a whisper. Now you decide, the woman said. The world you live in is loud, cruel. Loving openly will cost you. The red thread binds you, but it does not cage you. You may walk away and live quietly apart, or you may marry your destiny and face the storm together. Silence pressed in. Yibo turned to Xiao Zhan. I won't pretend this will be easy. Xiao Zhan met his gaze, steady and brave. Since when has anything worth choosing been easy? They clasped hands. The candles flared, and for a heartbeat, the murals seemed to move, threads weaving, lives aligning. The old woman nodded. So it is chosen. The storm came quickly. Rumors bloomed like wildfire. Headlines sharpened their teeth. Every gesture was dissected. Every glance turned into speculation. Pressure mounted from every direction, urging caution, distance, denial. There were nights when Xiao Zhan lay awake, listening to the city breathe, fear curling in his chest. Nights when Yibo rode until dawn, the roar of the engine the only thing loud enough to drown out doubt. On one such night, Yibo returned home to find Xiao Zhan sitting on the floor, surrounded by unfinished sketches. His eyes were red, but his spine was straight. I'm not scared of loving you, Xiao Zhan said quietly. I'm scared of losing you to the noise. Yibo knelt beside him, forehead touching his. Then we don't let the noise decide. They chose honesty, with each other first, then with the world, piece by piece. They learned how to be visible without being consumed, how to protect what mattered without shrinking it. Love became an act of courage. The proposal wasn't planned. They were in a quiet town by the sea, the horizon stretched wide and forgiving. The sky burned gold as the sun dipped low. The rain had not planned to stop that night. It lingered, slow and deliberate, as if it too wanted to witness what was about to begin. Wang Yibo remained under the tea house eaves long after the street emptied. His motorcycle stood nearby like a restless beast, engine ticking softly as it cooled. He told himself he was only waiting for the rain to thin out, but deep down, he knew he was waiting for something else. Or rather, someone. Across the street, Xiao Zhan hesitated beneath a flickering streetlight. His phone buzzed with unread messages, reminders of schedules and obligations, but he ignored them all. There was a strange pressure in his chest, a pull he couldn't name. It was as though the night itself was calling him forward, whispering that if he took one more step, his life would tilt on a new axis. When their eyes met again, the world shifted. It was not dramatic. No thunder cracked. No music swelled. Instead, everything became quiet. The rain softened. The neon lights blurred. Even the city seemed to lean back, giving them space. Xiao Zhan felt it first, the uncanny sense of familiarity. The man across from him was a stranger, yet his presence felt intimate, like a memory resurfacing from a dream he once forgot. His heart raced, not with fear, but with recognition. Yibo felt it too, sharp and undeniable. His instincts, honed by speed, danger, and precision, told him this moment mattered, that whatever he did next would echo far beyond tonight. They collided seconds later. The impact was light, almost gentle, but the electricity was not. I'm sorry. Sorry. Their voices overlapped. Xiao Zhan laughed softly, the sound warm and unguarded. Yibo froze, not because of embarrassment, but because that laugh did something to him. It settled somewhere deep, like it had always belonged there. It's okay, Xiao Zhan said, meeting his gaze. Guess the rain distracted me. Yibo nodded slowly. Me too. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. The space between them felt charged, like a held breath neither wanted to release. Yibo noticed the way Xiao Zhan's hair was damp at the edges, rain clinging to him like stardust. Xiao Zhan noticed the intensity in Yibo's eyes, quiet, controlled, but burning with something untamed. An impulse rose between them. There's a teahouse here, Xiao Zhan said, gesturing behind Yibo. If you want to wait out the rain. Yibo didn't hesitate. Yeah. Inside, the teahouse felt like another world. Warm light spilled across wooden floors polished by time. The air carried the scent of jasmine and earth, calming and intimate. Outside, the rain pressed against the windows, but inside, everything slowed. They sat by the window. For a while, they said nothing. The silence wasn't awkward. It was curious, alive. So, Xiao Zhan finally said, wrapping his hands around his cup. Do you come here often? Yibo shook his head. First time. I usually don't stop. Tonight you did. Yeah. Yibo glanced at him. Guess I needed to. Xiao Zhan smiled, unaware that his expression alone was quietly dismantling every wall Yibo had built. Conversation unfolded naturally, like a river finding its path. They spoke about small things at first, music drifting from nearby streets, the way rain made the city gentler, how tea tasted different depending on who you shared it with. Then the topics deepened. Xiao Zhan spoke about art, about how colors carried emotions words couldn't hold. He described losing himself in creation, how time dissolved when he painted or sang. Yibo listened closely. When he spoke, his words were few but weighted. He talked about movement, about speed, about the freedom of riding when the world felt too loud. How the helmet gave him silence, and the road gave him truth. Every revelation felt less like discovery, and more like confirmation. As if they were remembering each other. Outside, the rain slowed. Xiao Zhan glanced at his watch, surprised. It's late. Yibo nodded, reluctant. Yeah. Neither stood. Finally, Xiao Zhan reached into his bag and pulled out a small sketchbook. I don't usually do this, he said, flipping it open. But can I? Yibo tilted his head. Do what? Draw you. Something flickered in Yibo's chest. He nodded. Okay. Xiao Zhan's pencil moved quickly, confidently. Yibo watched him from across the table, mesmerized, not by the drawing, but by the focus in Xiao Zhan's eyes. The world narrowed for him in the same way it did on the road, sharp and vivid. When Xiao Zhan finished, he slid the sketch across the table. It was simple, raw, honest. Yibo stared at it, stunned. That's me. It's how I saw you, Xiao Zhan said softly. Yibo folded the paper carefully, as if it were fragile. Thank you. When they finally stepped back into the night, the rain had stopped completely. The street gleamed, washed clean, reborn. They stood awkwardly, unsure how to end something that felt too important to close. I'm Xiao Zhan, he said at last. Wang Yibo. Their names settled between them like a promise. Maybe, Xiao Zhan said, hesitating just slightly, we could meet again. Yibo's smile was small but real. I'd like that. As they walked away in opposite directions, neither realized they both stopped after a few steps and looked back at the same time. Above them, unseen, a red thread shimmered faintly, ancient, patient, unbreakable. That night, Xiao Zhan dreamed of rain and familiar eyes. That night, Yibo dreamed of a voice calling his name across lifetimes. Neither understood it yet, but destiny had already begun writing. If you enjoyed Married to My Destiny, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for the next continuation, because this story is only just beginning. Red Heart Sparkles.